So, for context, about 8 years ago, my parents got divorced because apparently my father had been cheating on my mother for a couple of years, and he got his affair partner pregnant. He decided to file for a divorce and be with his partner instead. And obviously, because my sister and I were pretty grown up at the time, we decided with our mom that we needed to cut our father out of our lives. My sister was 19 and I was 22 back then, and in the past 8 years, I have not had any contact with my father. But a couple of years ago, when my sister got married, my father apparently reached out to her and he asked for forgiveness because he wanted to walk her down the aisle. She said no, and she didn't even invite him, and I thought that was that. But recently I found out she did reconnect with him, and in the past couple of years they have been reconciling. And personally, I don't have a problem with it. But I know it hurt my mom to find out about it because so far she had been pretending like she still had nothing to do with our father. So it's the lying that hurts. Mind you, my mother was never the kind of person who made us pick between the two of them, even during the divorce. She had always maintained that she would want us to do whatever we wanted to. And she would never hold it against us if we decided to reconnect or forgive our father at any point in time. My sister could have just been honest about the whole thing, but she chose not to. And she decided to spring it on me and my mom all of a sudden at her daughter's naming ceremony. Basically, on my mom's side of the family, they have a tradition where the name of the baby is announced for the rest of the family at a party with everyone present so they can make a huge thing out of it. It is a huge thing. I've had it. My sister's had it. And so this is pretty important because this is a tradition passed on from my mom's side of the family. It was even more special for her. But my sister ruined everything by going behind our backs and inviting our father and his family to the event. We were shocked when my dad walked in with his wife and two kids, pretending as if everything was fine. And we were even more shocked when my sister walked up to him and gave him a hug and brought him over to us. And even though she could see that we were visibly awkward and embarrassed, she said she had invited him so that we could all reconnect and put everything in the past because the birth of her child signified the birth of new relations as well. And she wanted us all to forgive each other. Obviously, we had a lot of questions and I couldn't be bothered to be polite. I just asked her what was going on, and that's when she explained the whole thing to me. She was trying to keep things under control, but my mom just walked out after she said everything. And I was about to walk out as well, but my sister took me aside forcefully and started trying to explain everything to me, and that's when the real truth came out. Apparently, after the birth of her baby, she had been planning to quit her job to stay at home and be a full-time mom. But her husband said that it would not be a feasible idea for her to quit her job entirely because they needed their combined income to keep the household running. She was not okay with that, and she had spoken to her father about it, so he was basically writing her a big check, provided he could attend the naming ceremony party and provided my sister would try to at least get me to speak to him. She started to tell me she really needed this, but I was just disgusted because it became clear she was doing all of this for the money, nothing else. And to be honest, I don't even think her husband was being unreasonable because I know plenty of working moms, and it was not like he was about to make her do everything on her own. He was there to support her, and so far he has always been extremely supportive, and he's been a good husband, so I don't understand why she wanted to quit her job, knowing that it would create trouble for him. But that's just my opinion. She can do whatever she wants in her marriage. The only problem that I had was with the fact that she had basically betrayed my trust and my mother because she needed a big fat paycheck from our dad, and that's just spineless. Anyway, After hearing her out, I walked out, and when I went home, I told my mother everything. Now she's calling me a tattletale for doing that. But I don't really care about it because I think I did the right thing. And my mom was also very upset, naturally, and she told me that it was pretty pointless for my sister to have done something like that because, as it is, my mother was planning on writing her a check as a gift from the grandmother so my sister could put it aside for her daughter's future. And if my sister had had the common sense to discuss her problems with us, my mother might have written her a check and given her an even bigger amount to help her out because she's not exactly short on money, and neither is she a miser. But instead, my sister chose to betray us and break our trust, and now she's losing her relationship with her mom because my mother has decided that she's not going to speak to my sister and she's going to take a step back, even if it means not getting to visit her own granddaughter for a while. And of course, whatever money my mother has been planning to give to my sister as a gift, that's also out of the question because she's really hurt. My sister is demanding I help her fix the situation and mend the broken bridges because I am the one who tattled on her, but I don't think I need to do any of that. She thinks that I'm the one responsible for making our mother turn against her, but I think she did it just fine herself. So what do you think? AITA for telling my mother everything that my sister did and making her upset to the extent that she doesn't even want to talk to my sister? Update 1. Okay, so thank you so much for all the input that people have had to share in the comments. I think I have a fair idea of what people feel now, and yeah, I'm not going to apologize to my sister or anything. As it is, that was never part of the plan anyway, because I think what she did was really nasty and mean-spirited. If she needed money, she could have just said so, and we would have helped her out. In fact, my mother's not even upset about the fact that she invited our father to the thing. She's upset about all the lying and all the hiding and everything. That's just ridiculous. And I know my mother, and I know the kind of person she is, and she never would have had a problem with any of this if my sister had just been transparent and honest. Which for some reason she thought she couldn't be, even though we have never been anything but supportive of her throughout. I honestly don't know what she thought was going to happen. I mean, what she did was just ridiculous, but anyway, she got her check, and I guess that's all that matters to her. It's been a couple of weeks since the incident, and a few days back I heard from a friend that they had bought a new car and had posted about it. So if she's comfortable making these expenses, then that means that she has to check that our father wrote her, and the fact that she hasn't bothered to contact me or my mother for the past couple of weeks is also a pretty sure shot sign that the only thing that she cares about right now is the money, and that's kind of sad. Anyway, it's honestly just her loss because we really loved her, and if she wants to side with her father, then she's completely free to do so. But I don't think I will ever be okay with her again. Update 2. So it's been a year since we stopped speaking to my sister, and recently my mother and I decided to take a trip together. We went hiking. It was pretty fun, and of course we do miss our sister and her company, but at the end of the day, we have to make the most of the situation. So we tried our best to have fun, and have fun we did. I posted a couple of pictures, and somehow it made its way to my sister, and that was it. I don't know what happened, but after a year, she was compelled to reach out to me after seeing that post, and she sent me an email saying she was very upset that we had taken a trip together. And he had not even thought about inviting her, knowing how much she loves adventurous and outdoorsy things, and that's true. She really does love it. And she also brought up the fact that in the past, we used to plan on going on such a trip together, including her, and yet we never thought of inviting her, and that was quite hurtful. She said that she's extremely upset that in the past year, neither I nor my mom have ever come to visit her. And she has had to deal with being a mother on her own with no help from her sister and her mom whatsoever. And she has a point. It must have been hard for her, but again, she's the one who screwed things up and never bothered to genuinely come to us and apologize, let alone me. She never even apologized to our mother. She just let go and never bothered to contact us, and now all of a sudden she's upset and offended that we haven't included her in our plans and haven't been part of her life. I mean, I could say the same for her, couldn't I? It's just ridiculous to play the blame game instead of acknowledging the fact that she screwed up. She's pretending like she didn't even do anything, and she has conveniently forgotten about why we haven't been in touch with her for so long in the first place. Anyway, I didn't know what to say to her, so I just did not reply to that email because I didn't think that anything good was going to come out of it. We would just end up fighting and arguing, and I don't have time for that. It's just pointless. I did tell my mother about it though, and she had the same reaction as me. She was pretty upset and disappointed in my sister's behavior because she was pretending as if she had no fault in any of this, and that was disheartening. And both of us agreed that the best thing to do right now would be to just ignore this email and let it go because we didn't have anything to say. Update 3. Hi, so because I did not reply to her email, my sister decided to double down, and this time she was really mean. She wrote an email telling me that she was pretty glad I had decided not to reply because she had thought about it, and she had decided that I did not deserve to be in her life anyway. She called me a bitter old spinster, which I didn't even know was used as an insult anymore. But kudos to her for being so creative. Anyway, she said that I resented her and I was unhappy with the fact that she was married in spite of being younger, and she was happy with her life. She had a baby and a family and had everything she wanted, and I was jealous of her for all of that. She said that I was deeply unhappy with my own life, and that's why I couldn't make a man stay, and that's why I was still not married and my only life was my work. I mean, that's a pretty rich assumption to make, given that she hasn't been in touch with me for almost a year now. And also, even if that had actually been the case, I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I'm focused on my career, that's true, and I'm single by choice. The last relationship that I had didn't really work out well for me, and after that, I decided to take a break. I don't see anything sad about it. I just see a woman choosing herself. Not that I have to justify myself, but whatever. And anyway, for the past month and a half, I have actually been talking to a guy and it's going well. We are not exclusive or anything, but that's just right now. I do see this turning into a relationship and I'm happy about it. I don't understand why she would just assume that I'm jealous of her and her life, because I've never been the kind of person who has been very keen on marriages and babies, though I don't have a problem with people who do want that life. It's just not me. So for her to imply that I'm jealous of her, it's just weird because that was my sister. She definitely knows me well enough to know that it's not true. I guess she just wanted to hurt me, and unfortunately, she couldn't, but she definitely made a fool out of herself and lost all respect with that email. Because now, even if she did stand a chance of reconciling with me and my mom, after this email, both my mother and I know for a fact that it's not going to happen, at least not anytime soon. And I'm fine with it. After this email, I don't want to talk to her. And I don't want her anywhere around me. I think she's actually the bitter one, not me. Story 2. I never thought I'd be writing this, but here we are. My husband Joshua and I have been together since we were juniors in high school. We're talking 8 years now, married for 2. We have a beautiful 6-month-old son, and honestly, life was pretty great until my in-laws decided to lose their minds. Let me give you some background. Joshua's parents, Linda and Robert, have always been a bit much. They're the types who think their son can do no wrong and that I somehow trapped their precious boy. Never mind that we've been inseparable since we were 17, or that Joshua proposed to me, not the other way around. They've always made little comments about how young we were when we got serious, how maybe Joshua should have explored his options more in college. Real supportive stuff, you know. When we announced we were pregnant last year, they were happy but also weirdly suspicious. Linda kept making comments about how the baby came so soon after our wedding, even though we'd been married for over a year when I got pregnant. She'd say things like, "Well, babies don't always come when we plan them," with this knowing look. It was annoying, but I figured it was just typical mother-in-law nonsense. Then our son was born and everything got worse. The first red flag was when Linda looked at him in the hospital and said he didn't look much like Joshua. Now, our baby is 6 months old and honestly looks like a generic baby to me. But apparently, Linda expected him to pop out looking like a mini Joshua or something. She kept comparing old baby photos of Joshua to our son, pointing out differences. Robert would nod along like he was conducting some kind of scientific analysis. About 3 months ago, things escalated. Linda started making jokes about DNA tests. She'd say things like, "Wouldn't it be funny if we did one of those ancestry things and found out something surprising?" while looking pointedly at the baby. Or she'd share Facebook articles about paternity tests with captions like, "Just interesting information for new parents." Joshua shut it down every time, telling her it was inappropriate and hurtful, but she'd just laugh and say she was kidding around. The breaking point came 6 weeks ago during Sunday dinner at their house. We were all sitting around the table when Robert, completely out of nowhere, said they'd been thinking about getting our son one of those DNA kits for ancestry purposes when he got older. Linda jumped in, saying how fascinating it would be to see his genetic makeup and confirm which family traits he inherited. The way she emphasized confirm made it crystal clear what she was really talking about. Joshua lost it. He asked them point blank if they were questioning whether he was the father. Linda got all flustered and claimed they just wanted to be sure, you know, just in case. She said they were trying to protect Joshua because these things happen, and wouldn't he rather know for sure? Robert backed her up, saying it was just being practical and that any doubts should be cleared up now rather than later. I was sitting there holding my baby, listening to my in-laws essentially call me a cheater to my face. Joshua was furious, asking them how they could even suggest such a thing when they knew our history. We've been together since high school, for crying out loud. I've never even looked at another guy, but Linda just kept saying, "You never really know," and that they'd feel so much better if they could just get a simple test done. Joshua stood up and told them we were leaving. As we were walking out, Linda called after us, saying they were only trying to help and that we were overreacting. She actually said, "If there's nothing to hide, why are you so upset about proving it?" Like the burden was on us to prove our son's legitimacy to them. That night, Joshua was angrier than I'd ever seen him. He said he couldn't believe his own parents would disrespect him and our family like that. We talked for hours about what to do. I was hurt and humiliated, but part of me wondered if we should just get the test done to shut them up. Joshua was adamant that we shouldn't have to prove anything to anyone, especially not his parents, who should trust and support us. After a week of his parents calling and texting, trying to smooth things over, while still insisting they were just being caring and protective, Joshua made a decision. He told them that since they weren't sure if our son was actually their grandson, they wouldn't be seeing him anymore. If they had doubts about his parentage, then clearly they couldn't have a real relationship with him anyway. Linda immediately started backtracking, saying, of course, they believed Joshua was the father. They just thought it would be good to have official confirmation. But Joshua stood firm. He said their lack of trust in both of us had damaged our relationship permanently, and until they could genuinely apologize and acknowledge how wrong they were, they wouldn't be part of our son's life. It's been over a month now since they've seen their grandson. Robert has tried calling Joshua a few times, but Joshua won't answer. Linda sent me a long text message apologizing, begging to see the baby, but it felt hollow. She kept saying she was just trying to protect her son and didn't understand why we were being so dramatic about it. Joshua's siblings think we're being too harsh. His sister called and told me, saying their parents are heartbroken and just made a mistake. His brother thinks we should get the DNA test done just to prove them wrong and move on. But honestly, I don't think that would solve anything. The damage is done. They showed us exactly what they think of me and our marriage. The whole situation has me questioning everything. Am I being too sensitive? Should we have just gotten the test to keep the peace? Joshua is completely supportive of cutting them off, but I worry about our son missing out on having grandparents. At the same time, what kind of relationship could he have with people who questioned his legitimacy from day one? I keep thinking about how this will affect our family long term. Joshua's family used to be close, and now there's this huge rift. But I also can't forget the feeling of sitting at that dinner table while they essentially accused me of cheating and lying about my son's father. How do you come back from that? Am I wrong for supporting Joshua's decision to cut them off? Should we be trying harder to reconcile? Update 1. Hi guys. So 3 days after I posted this, Linda showed up at our house unannounced. Joshua was at work and I was home with the baby during my lunch break from my part-time remote job. She had tears in her eyes and was carrying flowers and a stuffed animal for our son. She begged me to let her explain and said she'd been miserable without seeing her grandson. I probably shouldn't have, but I let her in. She sat on our couch and immediately started crying when she saw the baby. She said she'd been wrong to suggest a DNA test and that she knew deep down Joshua was the father. She claimed she got caught up in some paranoia after talking to her sister, whose daughter-in-law had apparently cheated years ago. She said she was just scared of Joshua getting hurt like his cousin did. Linda begged me to forgive her and said she'd do anything to make it right. She even offered to pay for family counseling for all of us. I told her I appreciated her coming over, but that Joshua and I were a team, and my apology needed to include him. She asked if she could hold the baby, and honestly, my heart broke a little, seeing how much she missed him. When Joshua got home and saw his mom's car in the driveway, he was not happy. He came inside and found us in the living room, where Linda immediately launched into her apology speech. Joshua listened, but told her that showing up uninvited after he'd made it clear they needed space was not okay. Linda got defensive and said she had a right to see her grandson, which was exactly the wrong thing to say. Joshua told her she gave up that right when she questioned whether he was actually her grandson. The conversation escalated quickly, with Linda crying and saying she'd made a mistake, but that cutting her off completely was cruel. Joshua held firm and asked her to leave. As she was walking out, she turned around and said something that made my blood run cold. She told Joshua that if he didn't let them back into the baby's life, she'd have to consider other options to ensure their grandson was being properly cared for. That night, Joshua and I talked about what she could have meant by other options. We were both worried she might try to involve Child Protective Services or something equally crazy. Joshua was furious that his mom would threaten us, even indirectly. We decided to document everything just in case, saved all the text messages, wrote down dates and details of conversations, the whole thing. Update 2. Guys, we found out what Linda meant. Joshua's dad called him at work, saying they'd consulted with a lawyer about grandparents' rights in our state. Apparently they thought they could force visitation through the court system. Joshua came home that day looking defeated and angry. He couldn't believe his parents were threatening legal action to see our son after everything that had happened. I did some research and found out that grandparents' rights in our state are pretty limited, especially when the parents are married and there's no history of the grandparents having a significant relationship with the child while the parents were together. Since our son is only 6 months old and this whole drama started when he was tiny, they didn't really have much of a case. But the fact that they were even considering it showed us how far they were willing to go. Joshua called his dad back and told him that threatening legal action was the final straw. He said if they wanted to go to court, we'd be happy to tell a judge about their behavior, including their demands for DNA testing and their implications about my faithfulness. Robert apparently backed down pretty quickly after that, realizing that airing their dirty laundry in court wouldn't make them look very good. The stress of all of this was getting to both of us. I started having trouble sleeping, constantly worried about what his parents might do next. Joshua was angry all the time and felt betrayed by his family. We decided to see a couples counselor to help us navigate this situation and make sure it wasn't damaging our marriage. Update 3. Guys, I can't believe I'm writing this, but something amazing happened that completely turned everything around. 2 days ago, Robert called Joshua at work and asked if he could come over to talk. His voice sounded different, broken, really. Joshua was hesitant but agreed to meet him at a coffee shop instead of our house. When Joshua got there, Robert looked like he'd aged 10 years. He told Joshua that he'd been doing a lot of thinking since their lawyer's conversation and realized how far things had gone. He said he'd been talking to some old friends about the situation and every single one of them told him he was completely out of line. One of his buddies apparently laid it into him pretty hard, asking him how he could treat his son's wife like that when they'd been together since high school. But here's the big part. Robert admitted that the whole DNA test thing wasn't really his idea. He said Linda had been obsessing over it for months and kept pushing him to bring it up. He told Joshua that he never actually doubted that our son was his grandson, but Linda had gotten so worked up about it that she convinced him they needed to make sure for Joshua's sake. He said he went along with it because it was easier than fighting with Linda, but he realized how wrong that was. Robert broke down crying and apologized to Joshua for everything. He said he was ashamed of how they treated me and that he knew they'd probably lost their son and grandson forever. Joshua was pretty shocked because his dad is not an emotional guy at all and he'd never seen him cry before. The conversation lasted over 2 hours. Robert told Joshua that he'd given Linda an ultimatum. Either she needed to genuinely apologize and change her behavior, or he was going to start the divorce process. He said he was tired of her controlling and manipulative behavior, and that losing his son over her paranoia was the final straw. Apparently, Linda has some serious trust issues stemming from her own parents' messy divorce when she was young. And she's been projecting that onto every relationship around her. Joshua came home and told me everything. We talked for hours about whether we should give Robert a chance. I was honestly skeptical because I'd heard promises before, but Joshua said his dad seemed genuinely different. He wanted to try having one conversation with both of them together before making any final decisions. Yesterday, Robert and Linda came over together. Linda looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in weeks. She immediately started crying the moment she saw our son and gave the most genuine apology I've ever heard from her. She admitted that she'd been wrong about everything, that her behavior came from her own issues and fears, and she had no excuse for how she'd treated me. She said she'd been so scared of Joshua getting hurt that she created the exact situation she was trying to prevent. The most surprising part was when she told me she'd already started seeing a therapist to work on her trust and control issues. She said she realized she'd been trying to sabotage our relationship because she was afraid of losing Joshua, but ended up pushing him away instead. She asked if we could start completely over and she could earn back our trust slowly. I'm not going to lie, I was still pretty angry, but seeing how broken she looked and how sincere she seemed, plus the fact that Robert was clearly holding her accountable, made me willing to give it one more chance. Joshua felt the same way. We set up some pretty strict boundaries. They have to call before coming over. No more comments about our relationship or parenting choices. And if Linda slips back into her old behavior even once, they're done permanently. They agreed to everything without any pushback. It's been 3 days now, and honestly, it's like dealing with completely different people. Linda has been respectful and kind. She hasn't made a single weird comment. She's been focusing on just enjoying time with her grandson without any of the drama. Robert has been much more supportive too, and actually apologized to me privately for not standing up to Linda sooner. I know it's still early and people can fall back into old patterns, but for the first time in months, I feel hopeful about our family situation. Joshua is relieved to have his parents back in his life, and our son gets to have his grandparents after all. Linda even bought me a card thanking me for giving her another chance and saying she's committed to being the mother-in-law I deserve. I never thought this situation would have a happy ending of sorts, but sometimes people can surprise you. I'm cautiously optimistic that we've turned a corner and that our son will grow up with grandparents who love and respect this whole family. It feels good to finally have some peace. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.